estudiantes, este es el repaso de la lección número 4. Lesson number 4 is about pasatiempos. Pasatiempos means hobbies or things that you do on your free time. So we're going to focus on pastimes, the weekend activities, sports, and making plans and invitations. So as you can see, this is our lesson 4. And as always, I strongly suggest you to go look at your book. This is our e-companion, lesson 4. And then if you want to go to the full vocabulary list, you can go to page 150 and you're going to find the whole vocabulary list that we are focusing on for this unit. So you're going to see that we have in here pasatiempos, all hobbies, sports, and other verbs that are relevant to that lesson 4, some adjectives and places. Okay, so I want you to especially look and pay attention to these places because we are going to be talking about this in the grammar section as well. Okay, so as always, go to look at your book. I would like you to really browse in here all the vocabulary that is available for you. You're going to see some drawings and some activities. So I strongly suggest you to go look at your book. And some of these activities are the ones that you're going to find in VHL Central. But in here, you're going to see more detail and pictures as well. So just as always, please make sure to go look at your vocab and your book, e-companion Portales 1, and we're talking about lesson 4. Now we're going to go to the grammar explanations. So we are working with grammar explanation 4.1, which is the present tense of ir. At this point, we already talked about verbs and the conjugation in present tense. Remember that for all of the verbs, you are going to conjugate them, which means that you're going to match the person you're talking about with the ending of the verb. Like in English, we do it as well, but it's not as obvious as we do it in Spanish. In English, for example, I can say I buy, but then if I say she, I'm going to say she buys, okay? Or I go and then she goes or he goes, okay? So those are the only changes that we really do in English, but in Spanish, those changes are going to apply to each person. So the verb is going to match the person we're talking about, and that's why sometimes we jump into the verb and we don't say the noun or the pronoun because we are going to use a specific conjugation that applies only to that person. For example, if I say bailo, we know that the ending O applies to the yo form. So sometimes I don't have to say yo bailo, yo estudio, yo trabajo, but only bailo, estudio, trabajo, because that means that I'm talking about myself. Now we're going to talk about the verb ir as we have in here. So the verb ir means to go, but this verb is an irregular verb. So at this point, we mainly have been talking about regular verbs, which means that once you know the ending, as I said before, you take the stem, you look at the ending, and pretty much you plug in the ending, and then you're going to have the conjugation of regular verbs. But in this case, we're talking about an irregular verb that is very popular, which is the verb ir, which means to go. Now, you're going to see the conjugation in here, and it's very different to the original form. So in here we have verb ir, which means to go, and then when we conjugate, it's going to say yo voy, which means I go, you go, usted, él, or ella va, which means he, she, or you, but in the formal way, you go, we go, you all go, they go, and they, female version, go, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and then just pronounce this for you. Yo voy. tú vas, usted va, él va, ella va, nosotros vamos, nosotras vamos, vosotros vais, vosotras vais, ustedes van, ellos van, ellas van. Okay, so some of these are going to share conjugation. Sometimes this is going to be understood because of context. So very important. But like in here, you only have voy for yo. That's what I was saying before. Sometimes we can skip this and then just say voy a la escuela, because no other person is going to use that conjugation. So if I say voy, there is an understanding that it's going to be me, or I'm talking about myself. Now, the verb ir, obviously, when we are talking about going, we usually say going to a place. So that in Spanish is going to be a. But we have to also use the definite article, okay? And we're going to talk about those 4 definite articles coming up in here. But in here, it's telling you, we are going to combine a plus el to form al. So let's go here. So this is a recap of the definite articles that we have in Spanish. In English, we have the, like the house, the school, the church, or the supermarket. But in Spanish, we have 4, depending if it's masculine, singular, feminine, singular, plural, masculine, and plural, feminine, okay? So this fusion between a and the definite article is only going to happen when we have el, okay? It's not going to affect any other. So in here we say, voy a la casa de mi madre. I'm going to my mom's house. Voy a la. So you can see in there that I am using the verb voy. I go to the, okay? Voy a los restaurantes italianos. I'm going to the Italian restaurants. Voy a las casas de mis amigos. So when we use la, los, or las, nothing changes. I'm just going to add in here a, which means in English to. But if we are using that with el, there's going to be a fusion that is going to become al. And we have some more examples here. Voy al parque con Juan. I'm not going to say voy a el parque. This is going to become al. Voy al parque con Juan. Mis amigos van a las montañas. So in here, we haven't done anything, any change. Okay? Also, we are going to use ir plus an infinitive verb. Remember that an infinitive verb are those verbs that are not conjugated. So, for example, in English would be to go, to eat, to buy. It doesn't tell me who is performing the action. In Spanish, that is going to be the equivalent to comer, dormir, comprar, and so on. If you say, voy a comer, I am going to eat. Voy a leer el periódico. I am going to read the newspaper. And we have in here, va a leer el periódico. He is going to read the newspaper. In here we skipped el, but we can also use it in here if you want to. Él va a leer el periódico, or only va a leer el periódico. Van a pasear por el pueblo. They are going to walk around town. Ellos van a pasear por el pueblo. Ella va al cine y a los museos. She goes to the movies and to the museums. Now, what happens if I want to say yo? Yo voy al cine. Yo voy a los museos. Okay? So you have to come back in here and see which one you're talking about, who you're talking about, and what conjugation you're going to use for that person. And finally, a couple more of examples. It also can be used as let's. So if I say vamos a pasear, I can be making the suggestion. Let's take a walk. Vamos a comer. Let's eat. Vamos a estudiar. Let's study. Vamos a trabajar. Let's work. Okay? So I hope that this is not too complicated. You can come back in here and look at the conjugations for verb ir. And remember, we use it to say to go to a place. And there's a little change in here. And we also use it to say, I'm going to do something. Voy a leer, voy a estudiar, voy a comer. Voy a comer una hamburguesa hoy. And also to say, let's go take a walk. Let's take a walk. Vamos a pasear. Vamos a comer. Let's go shopping. Vamos a comprar o vamos a hacer compras. Let's go to 4.2. And this is going to be talking about stem changing verbs. So far we have said that we have the verbs, and when we conjugate, we are going to keep a stem. So these are stem changing verbs. So these are going to be changes in the stem that we keep from some verbs, okay? So far we have talked about regular verbs, irregular verbs, just as ir, which change when they are conjugated, and these are called stem changing verbs. They're going to have a change in their stem. So in here, we think that we are keeping the stem like it is, but these are going to have an additional change. These are going to go from E to IE, and these from O to UE. So those are two ways that a verb can change. Okay, so if we have an E, it's going to go to IE. If we have an O, it's going to go to UE. How do I know that we are finding a stem changing verb? We have to learn those stem changing verbs, okay? They're going to be listed, and usually they are going to be indicated by, let me find it, by this, okay? You usually will see it next to it, okay? So some particular feature of stem changing verbs is that not of them change, only a few. And for this, some teachers use this form, which is like a boot form. So far we have been using singular forms, plural forms. We have yo, tú, usted, él, ella, nosotros, vosotros, ustedes, ellos, y ellas. You can see we have singular and plural. So they try to use this shape just to help you out understand which are going to be affected by that stem changing verb, okay? So you just keep in mind this shape. This might help you. You know by now that we have yo, tú, él, ella, or usted. And then we have nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, or ustedes. So only the verbs that fit in this shape are going to be the ones affected by the stem change, okay? So just keep that in mind, and if you know that you're talking about a stem changing verb, make sure that it fits in this shape, and if it does, it's affected. If it's not, if it doesn't fit, then it's not going to be affected by that stem change, okay? This is only like a trick or a tip that some professors use to help their students remind them of how they're going to be affected. So here we have the example of the ones changing from E to IE, and here we have the ones changing from O to UE. So where is that U coming from? It doesn't really matter. We just have to remember that that happens in some of them. As I said, they are going to fit in that shape of the boot, okay? And here we have a list of verbs. So all of these are going to change from E to IE in those particular people, and in here from O to UE. So keep that in mind. And these are our stem changing verbs from I to IE and from O to UE.